Greetings, everybody. I'm not sure if you can see me or hear me yet, but it's I, Tyler Ellison, here with my amazing friend and host, Starshine of the Sasani universe. Star, it's great to be here with you. Thanks so much for joining me. How's your dimension unfolding?
Very good, my friend. Excuse me. It's very good to have you back. Like we were just talking about channel panel. I'm sure you had a great time there, but we certainly missed our interactions. So yeah, it's super good to be back.
It's great to be back as well. And the channel panel, like you brought up, it was a great time. I got to meet Bashar and Daryl. I got to mingle with Wendy Kennedy, Jamie Price, and I've done some channelings with them before in the past. And it was a big reunion, a lot of soul family, and a lot of unexpected magic that was accompanied with Sasquatch communications. And I'll share a quick story, and I'm happy to share it because you know how it is. Time keeps rolling, and it's really easy to kind of forget all of the little details along the way. But I get to West Virginia, and the whole time I'm there driving through, I'm like, there's got to be like massive Sasquatch populations within the etheric realm. And it sort of danced around my mind just as a curious thought. And then I go to sleep once I settled in, and I wake up the next morning in the Airbnb, and it's just me in there. It's a house, and all of a sudden there's like knocking. There's knocking on the door, but then there's knocking on the wall. There's knocking on the ceiling. The whole room started knocking. The whole house was like a bunch of hands knock, knock, knocking on it. And I was not, the only one who was staying in the Airbnb. There were other people there, some of my friends, and I was like calling out to them. I'm like, hey man, I'm here. You don't have to knock like that. I'm kind of delirious, waking up from a dream. Knocking continues. And I'm driving then after I start the day to the channel panel to do the transmission, 10 a.m. transmission. And while I'm driving there, the thought of Sasquatch just keeps permeating my mind. I hadn't even made a connection to Sasquatch with the knocking, but I'm just like thinking about it and really feeling the energy. And lo and behold, I get to the channel panel. I just start talking about the unusual knocking. And the first comment out of one of the other channelers is, "Oh, that's the Sasquatch, and they're trying to communicate with you." And I was like, "Oh my God, I had no clue that was a part of their arsenal of contact, that type of almost disorienting knocking." So after hearing that, we had a surprise channeling during the channel panel transmission where it was mostly RYOKAH, but then he brought in a representative of the local Sasquatch collective, and they gave a bunch of techniques doing energy work with the trees to make a big toroidal field, which opens the crown to pull in these massive downloads of information and star wisdom. So there was a bunch of really cool stuff there, but that is the Sasquatch encounter that I had personally. There were also some strange encounters with what I believe to be ghosts. Repeatedly, upon falling asleep, in bed, I would get visions of just people. And they weren't like, deities or angels or aliens. Like these are like people, like jeans and a t-shirt, right? They look like the average person. And I would just keep getting glimpses of these folks while falling asleep. And I told, another channeler this, they're like, sounds like it could be ghosts. And with the types of connections that people in West Virginia have to one another, to the land, it may be challenging actually for some souls to want to move on because it's a very natural connection, very down to earth. And West Virginia as a whole, Princeton, West Virginia, deeply surprised me. There were so many cool folks there. And when I say cool folks, I mean conscious people who had actually, in my belief, summoned the channel panel. Like they have been growing their community, they've been growing their arts, their music, their gifts, and a lot of them have been asking for the expansion portal. And I think that that intention actually was one of the reasons why West Virginia was selected. So it's a little bit about the journey. It was a lot of fun. I'll give one more highlight and then we'll dive into the channeling today. I just like to keep everybody updated. I know some of you have been following the journey that I'm on for a while, so these are some of the behind the scenes. But on Sunday, the final night, Rob and the team closed out the channel panel with a CE5, and there was success. He's got multiple recordings of plasma craft or plasma emanations from craft that appears as just strobing rainbow light and then flashes. So that was a wild experience to see because this venue was like right in their sort of town square area, if you will, like lots of businesses, lots of traffic, and it's a major hub. So these ETs were not intimidated by that at all. They could care less, and they got pretty close, close enough to be filmed. So that is the behind the scenes analysis of the West Virginia Channel Panel. And may the Channel Panel continue to have success, prosperity, and fun because it's changing lives. I know I got a big upgrade from it, and everybody that was a part of it did as well. And for those of you that live streamed it, thanks so much for supporting the Channel Panel. Even if you weren't there in person, your love and support was certainly felt, and it's still felt even now. So I thank you guys for this. And now we can start to reorient and shift into the channeling focus of today. I'm going to be going into the trance state. I'll bring RYOKAH of the Sasani forth. And once he's been brought forth, he'll give his primary teaching to all of you. And following this, we'll open up the floor for your questions. Starshine is going to be moving through the submitted questions, scanning, and remote viewing for the most potent activating of questions. And I appreciate you guys diving deep and really sharing those burning questions that are on your mind, on your heart, because we were talking about it just a moment ago before this stream. This is a really powerful time, and the words high stakes was used, and I don't disagree with that at all. There are high stakes and very unpredictable situations, I think, happening around the world and also in some of our lives. So, what are we to do in the face of that uncertainty, in the face of the unknown, in the face of what looks like risk? These are important topics. I know as I'm saying it, some of you guys can feel the activation. So, if you have those kinds of questions, don't hesitate. You can bring those here to us, and we will certainly take them and address them. If you bring a personal question, we'll do our best to answer it. It's better if those are in private sessions because that's where it's one-on-one and we can deeply read the energy. But for now, whatever's on the mind, whatever's on the heart, you guys can feel empowered to submit it. With that being said, everyone, I'm going to dive into the trance. We're going to make our announcements at the end of the Q&A and transmission. So if you want to hear what's in store, stick around till the end because we're going to be having some events lined up that I think you guys are going to love. I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy yourselves. Yo, 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 oh, I, oh, I, oh, I. Lord, we thank each and every single one of you for joining us for this ecstatic co-creative interaction that we manifest with one another this here, this now. We are going to deliver a very special transmission to you now that is all about the basic mechanics of consciousness. These basic fundamentals will be elucidated here and in the upcoming training programs. They will be maximized so you can take this knowledge and you can more deeply turn it into embodied experience that is practical, that is alive, that is designed to serve and nourish you as you move forward on your multi-dimensional journey of linear evolution, which is just a disguise for the multi-dimensional evolution that you are eternally a part of. There are three fundamentals in terms of what you would describe as experience. Now, when I say experience, I'm not talking just about human experience. I am talking about all forms of experience, be it the experience of a plant, be it the experience of a bacteria, be it the experience of a bird, be it the experience of an angel, be it the experience of a demon, be it the experience of an extraterrestrial or multidimensional deity. These are the fundamentals, and we're going to get into that now. Imagine a trinity. The top of this trinity, the apex point, this is the quality of pure presence, which you might also describe as existence. That is the fundamental quality. Existence, pure presence, then blossoms into awareness. Awareness then blossoms in to consciousness. Presence, awareness, consciousness. I will say it again. Presence, awareness, consciousness. If you are curious about your true self, if you are curious about who's behind the mask, it's that trinity. Pure presence that extends into awareness, that simultaneously extends into consciousness. Consciousness then produces a quality of mind that represents its nature and its desires for experience. Once consciousness has been engendered, this is when the experiential environment is selected. Once consciousness is engendered, the experience of self and other is had. Self and other, of course, is a story-based dynamic. And as you know, all stories require set, they require setting, they require characters, they require props. If you don't have those dimensions, you don't really have a story. So once you're at the level of consciousness, the third level, this is where the story structure is engendered. And this is what produces the various matrices of incarnational potential, i.e., the many lifetimes, physical, spiritual, or otherwise, that are available to that unique form of consciousness. So a sense of mind is developed. This is a spiritual mind that is involved in the selection of the appropriate lifetime or matrix of experience. This level of mind that is engendered by consciousness, you describe it as higher mind. As that higher mind begins to focus into the matrix of experience that it desires, it will then dream the experience of its counterpart, which you would describe as lower mind. This is the spirit of the body that will house the higher mind, if you will. And it is that attraction and that resonation that then produces the experience of what you call middle mind or middle self. That's the character that you experience yourself to be. You are a third entity, if you will, in terms of your direct experience of reality. You are a blending of lower mind. You are a blending of higher mind. And when you awaken your balance point of empowerment, you then awaken the eye of the heart chakra, the fully awakened middle self that is able to choose between higher and lower, that is able to balance the polarities of higher and lower, that is able to dance within the spirals of the higher and lower worlds, thus creating new possibilities, thus creating new opportunities. Remember that at the end of the physical life, higher self ascends back up, lower self goes down to the earth. So what happens to middle self? What happens to you, the character that you think you are? It depends on your focus in the here and now. If your focus is more on the lower worlds, the lower impulses, your middle self will be more predisposed to select those types of paths following the lifetime. If your focus is higher, if your focus is on your divinity, your mission, your gifts of service, then your focus as the middle self will remain a higher focus when the lifetime is completed. So remember, energy goes where attention flows. If you live your life thinking you're the body and the impulses of the body, the desires of the body, you will be in resonation with middle self. If you are embodying your full energy body, your full spiritual intelligence, and you are sharing that, you are demonstrating it with others, you are acting as a channel for your higher self, for your higher mind. Eventually, that which you channel becomes almost indistinguishable from you as a being. Thus, the middle self is transformed by the image and the likeness, and into the image and the likeness of the higher self. So when the lifetime is finished, physically speaking, a full ascension takes place. That's the mechanics of it. It is quite simple. Remember that it's not just this type of knowledge that assists you in navigating that transition from physical into non-physical. It's that same type of focus that allows for you to transcend your experience of limitation, suffering, pain, whilst in physical reality. Because remember, those are experiences of density. And when one zooms out, remember, we described the zoom out method a transmission or so ago. When one begins to zoom out, they're assuming the higher self vantage point, which gives them energetic space from the suffering, from the pain, from the challenge, so they can then reframe the suffering, the pain, the challenge. Remember that the actual transcendence of a thing comes from allowing the story of that thing to play out in the ideal or preferred way. So, how do you get your challenge to unfold in the ideal or preferred way, to fully transcend it? What is needed is the reframing of the challenge, a rewriting of the story. Without that, the story that is used will be based upon either ancestral belief systems or cultural conditionings. It's quite simple. When one reframes the challenge, the suffering, the pain, and they rewrite the meaning of these things, and they rewrite their definition of self in relationship to these things, those subjects have to then express differently in a way that resonates with the quality of the story. So it is that transformation of narrative, which is easily accomplished from the zoomed out perspective, that allows for the story structure that is being used to create reality to easily change. So that way the story can play out in the preferred way. And that is highly beneficial in what you describe transcendence of challenge. Take a breath with me. Feel the infinite knowledge and information flowing through you. Your mind is doing its best to follow along, and it's doing a very good job. Yet your energy body does not need to follow along because it is the alpha and the omega. It knows this entire timeline forwards and backwards. So everything I'm saying to you, you actually already know. The resonation that you feel within you is the words and the energy activating the unshakable knowledge and empowerment that you are always standing upon and contain within you. These three fundamentals, these three basics, presence, existence, awareness, and consciousness, is what you naturally resonate with when you zoom out far enough. When you disentangle from what you describe as ego through that zoomed out view, you begin to climb that ladder once more, going from middle mind, for some people, from lower mind to middle mind, then to higher mind, finally from higher mind, consciousness. From consciousness, awareness. Awareness to pure presence. When you embody this structure, many of you can feel it now just through the description, you are energetically untouchable. All concept of attack, all concept of duality, all concept of victimhood cannot remain intact from these higher levels. These higher levels are untouchable. And what I mean is they are so ultimate that there is no way they could ever be corrupted because they are in resonation with all things. There's nothing outside of them. Therefore, there's nothing that could possibly corrupt them. There's nothing that's inside of them because they're inherently empty, as your Buddhists describe. Therefore, there's nothing from within that could corrupt them. So they are pure levels of experience. When you zoom out to those levels, any story that's contained within dissolves. Does consciousness possess its own stories? Sort of. However, these are eternal archetypal stories that act as the incarnational templates that we described moments ago. Those are pure templates. The Adam Kadmon template is one of them, and it is what your humanity is based upon. When you enter into these levels, truth reveals itself through clarity. Clarity comes from seeing your life in a multi-dimensional point of view. Know yourself beyond the body so you can fully inhabit the body in total empowerment, in total confidence, in total love, and in total devotion to the song of life, because it is that song that has guided you here. It is that song that has brought you to this moment, and it is that song that encourages you to take your next breath. We thank you for receiving this description of the three fundamentals. May you bask in their radiance eternally, and may your world be auspiciously transformed and upgraded through resonance with that higher trinity of experience. We make ourselves now available to you for the questions that you deem to be resonant with us and our energy stream.
Thank you, friend. It's good to see you again. How are
And
you?
it is a pleasure to see you as well.
Great. So let's get started. Our first question is, why are scientists seeing galaxies 1 billion years after the Big Bang?
Because remember that there are actually 2 points of creation that feed into each other. This has not been described before, so we will describe it here and now. Many of you think of the Big Bang as a starting point for your universe. This is not necessarily true. There is a Big Bang that acts as the portal for energy and information to flow into this universe. The energy and information that flows into this universe comes from the multiversal ocean and the many universes that are sort of this universe's neighbors. Information flows in through a portal of infinite light, and this infinite light then takes all of that energy and information and it constructs templates. These templates are the archetypal light matrices that become planets, that become stars, that become the scaffoldings of energy that populates the spaciousness of the cosmos. So that light matrix of the universal body is based upon the quality of energy and information that comes through what you call the Big Bang portal. Now, if you were to imagine a timeline with the Big Bang as the starting point, you're only halfway there. On the other end of that timeline, you need another Big Bang. One Big Bang is taking energy from past universes and it's transmitting them from that Big Bang origin point forwards up the timeline, if you will. The Big Bang that's at the end of the timeline is taking energy from that multiversal ocean, from the neighboring universes that are more future oriented and that are more future based in terms of multiversal time. So the past is feeding in through one Big Bang portal and the future is being fed in through the other. And these light matrices complete each other. You are going to find that there are future-based galaxies as well as past-based galaxies. So you don't have one Big Bang, you have two, and they are the alpha and the omega point of your timeline. One feeds information forward through time, one feeds information backwards through time. Your experience in the present moment stabilizes those energetic projections in what you describe as the here and now. So the scaffolding for the past exists. The scaffolding for the future exists, and when they blend together, you have your experience of a timeline. But remember, that's just a physical perception of their blending. There are multidimensional beings who use those overlapping scaffoldings in their own creative ways that are not necessarily based in linear time. Remember, it's the Big Bang portals that create time within the universe. So it is not just the beginning of linear time, it is also the containing of multidimensional time within a universal experience. So there are two Big Bangs, and they feed into one another, thus creating your experience of the here and now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, why is Archangel Michael depicted as a warrior with sword and shield? Doesn't that contradict unconditional love?
If you love your child and someone is trying to steal them from you right in front of you, won't you do everything it takes to defend the child and to ward off the one trying to steal them? That's no contradiction of love. That's love in action. Your body possesses an immune system. There's your shield. Your body possesses a sword. It's your tongue. It's your mind. It's your thoughts. Sword is representative of the element of air. It is the clarity of consciousness that cuts through the illusions, and it reduces the attack to a reflection. So you could think of it as a sword of violence, but that's like reading the Bible and thinking that a talking snake convinced a woman to eat an apple, thus resulting in the great decline of your people. It's looking at things literally. So you must look at things like a magician. If you don't, you're going to miss the mark every time. And remember, in your ancient texts, sin was an archery term, and it means to miss the mark. So do not miss the mark in regards to understanding these symbols. Do keep in mind you use protection regularly, and you use the sword of clarity regularly. If you feel uncomfortable using those symbols, well, guess what? That's your nervous system telling you you have an imbalanced relationship with your power. Because if you stood in your power truthfully, you wouldn't care about the symbol you're using because you know it's just a prop and you can use it in a positive way. Remember, swords and shields don't hurt people or create negativity. The person wielding them has the possibility of doing those things, but they are just things. They are just symbols. So you have to deconstruct the narratives you've inherited about what things mean. Weapons don't always mean violence. I'll say that again. Weapons don't always mean violence. Having a sword and a shield does not always mean one is in fear. One is in a negative state of mind. Better to be a warrior in the garden than the gardener in the war. My role is not to convince you of anything. My role is to reveal that which has always been. So, there's a reason why certain realities are almost completely untouchable in terms of their energetic accessibility. What do I mean? The only thing that can touch those realities is that which resonates fully with them. It's not as if beings of all types of energetic qualities can enter in to that reality. Only those that are in pure resonation with it may enter. These are the higher realms. If beings from lower realms, whom maintain the illusions of ego, were to access the higher realm, it wouldn't really be a higher realm, would it? It'd be a lower realm. What does that mean for all the realities below that one vibrationally? There'd be a trickle-down effect. You would translate it as chaos. So there are certain beings that maintain the energetic boundary and the energetic integrity and the energetic accessibility of certain realities. So that way, only those who are in full resonation with them may enter. To those whom are not in full resonation, those realities are almost completely invisible. So, there are many forces working behind the scenes to your benefit. Notice how your earth has not destroyed itself. Notice how your societies have not given in to the lower vibrational energies. And they remain intact. And you still have many people whom are striving to create more positivity. There are many forces that assist the collective of humanity in remaining more neutral and in remaining more positive. And they also aim to diminish the negative influence that is a part of the collective subconscious, so your subconscious can be more of a tool rather than an abyss. So, unconditional love is the mother protecting her child. Do not forget that. Do not let your love be weak. I will only express my love in ways that are overtly happy. That is limited love. Unconditional love is a rainbow of light. It will express in whatever way is needed for it to sustain itself. It is like a fire, and it burns. It consumes. In unconditional love, enemies can be transformed into friends. Notice I said transform. That's a process. If there are enemies, sometimes a shield's helpful. If they're criticizing you, sometimes a sword of clarity is helpful. But as you transform them into friends, those tools may not be needed in the same way they were needed before. So be multidimensional in your assessment of these things so you can be multidimensional in every area of your life, thus allowing for you to awaken the source self within.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, on November 3rd, there were some crop circles that appeared in Brazil. Can you speak on those and what the message is of those
Sure.
crop?
These are crop circles that are a part of hybrid communications in relationship to the hybrid species you describe as the Yael. The message is the following. Inner earth portals are awakening. This is allowing for ancient information to be brought to the surface. As this ancient information makes contact with the surface reality, portals of temporal overlay are awakened on the surface, thus allowing for time travel capacities to take place. So in the earth, you have the Akashic record, if you will, of all the previous civilizations. They're all sort of built on top of one another, like layers and levels to the earth. This inner earth awakening that's taking place is allowing for the ancestral spirits of your people to make contact with the surface. This is not like a ghost from the past communing with you through clairaudience or something like that. These are portals that will allow for time travelers from your past to be able to make contact with your surface. It is also going to allow for time travel technologies to gradually be developed within your society so humans can begin to journey into that time stream. So if this crop circle is studied esoterically, it is going to awaken the awareness of the ancestral connection. It is going to allow for beings from the past, if you will, that are resonant with those using the crop circle to commune with your present reality, either psychically or in some instances physically as materialized projections. And in other uses of this, the geometric designs of the crop circle can allow for time travel technologies to be gradually developed. So without the crop circle, this process would still be happening, but it would be happening within the background. You wouldn't really notice it. Through the Yael creating these designs, we now have permission to reveal some of these behind the scenes dimensions to that timeline overlay that is created through the inner earth portal, sharing its energy with that surface reality that is where the crop circle is positioned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, can you speak on the process of opening one's third eye?
There's many ways to do it. And when you do it, be prepared for what is to come because you're going to start to sense a lot of energy. Your dreams are going to start to increase. You're going to be able to read people with a higher degree of accuracy. You're going to be able to see past the usual ego mask of people. Things might start to look a little dreamy. Things might start to look a little artificial. So, when you awaken the third eye, let the awakening of the eye within the heart be the first step. If you awaken the third eye without first awakening the heart, you will see reality very clearly. You will see yourself very clearly. And if you do not love yourself, if you do not accept yourself or others, it might be like waking up to a nightmare. So prepare that awakening through awakening the eye of the heart. How do you do this? Hold the heart center, awareness of the heartbeat, smile power down into the heart center. And start to see a beautiful lotus over the heart center. And with each beat, see that the lotus becomes a little bit more expansive, a little bit more healthy, a little bit more empowered. Keep adding dimensions to this lotus. Begin to detect its psychic fragrance of beauty. If it were to give off an auditory vibration, what does the song of the lotus sound like? What types of beings does the lotus attract? Instead of pollinators, see angelics. Ascended masters are drawn to it. And you'll start to feel very pleasant. You may notice the mind becomes very quiet. When the heart is awakened, the ego, what you call lower ego, begins to go to sleep. And when the heart fully opens, it is the higher self and the soul that expresses through the form, that expresses through you as the character. Once that's stabilized, and that's going to be achieved over about a week's time, once that's stabilized, then repeat the exercise and sense that the energy from the heart begins to rise. And as it rises, it goes up to the throat, and then it comes up to the tongue tip, positioned at the roof of the mouth. Finally, it comes up to the tip of your nose. Once it's here, start to guide the energy up the bridge of the nose. Below your mid-eyebrow point, this is where the energy body of the third eye begins. So it begins level with physical eyes. Begin to awaken a chakra here. Between this chakra level with the eyes and the mid-eyebrow, there's another chakra. Awaken it here. It is right where the nose connects to the brow. Then come up, awaken your mid-eyebrow. Then come up, awaken the center position chakra slightly above the eyebrows. Then come up to the usual area you call the third eye. Come up slightly above that one, awaken the chakra here, and then finally up to your hairline. This is the full third eye. Use the heart's power to awaken it step by step by step by step by step by step by step. See each of those energy centers as a little eye. And once it's open, see it really open like an eye. Once they're all open, and go slow. You don't have to do them all in one day. You could spend a week on the lower one, then work up to the next for the following week. You could let this be a month plus long process if you want. And each level contains infinite mysteries. So you can spend as much time as you want on any single level. And you're going to have insight, you're going to have downloads, you're going to have realizations. But once you've awakened all of those centers, see them all as little eyes, and then spend time opening them all at once, closing them all at once, opening, closing. Start to be able to train that like a muscle. With all of those eyes, practice looking down, looking up, looking left, looking right, looking diagonal. Train these eyes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You're welcome.
So, Bashar has shared that extraterrestrials are working behind the scenes to help humanity. Can you give some examples of this?
Well, it's very similar to the question about Mikael wielding the sword and the shield. There's a reason why so many of your conflicts are contained. There's many reasons why negativity is not the thing that's fully determining what's happening on Earth. You have a great deal of multidimensional support. And what are many of these ET beings doing? They're projecting positive thought forms. So that way, the collective etheric and astral planes aren't populated with the thought forms of those whom are creating negative energy. So these beings are producing positive thought forms that anyone can tune into to create miracles, to create upliftment, to create positive synchronicities. Those thought forms that they project, which are like living movies, can merge with human energy fields, thus creating timelines of transcendence and parallel reality navigational enhancements so people don't get lost in their journey. That's one of the specific roles that they're playing. It's also one of the reasons why they remain, many of them, in the unseen realms, because they can operate as a greater supportive network from the shadows or from the levels that are beyond human detection. So they are observing what you do with those positive thought forms that are being projected. If you're tuning into them, if you're using them, well, then you're resonating with the ETs, and full resonation with them causes them to physically manifest. If they were to manifest prematurely and terrify you through their presence and you not being prepared, then it doesn't matter what positive thought forms they send because you won't tune into them. So there's a reason why many ETs are in the background, but they are auspiciously bombarding your astral and etheric plane with positive thought forms of life, transcendence, health, enjoyment, prosperity, delight, genius, creational upliftment, and unconditional love. These are the types of thought forms regularly being circulated throughout your planet's ley line network, throughout the planet's chakra, meridian network. This is constant. This is one of the major roles that they play. And they assist you in taking those thought forms and producing goodness on the planet. That way, it's still your planet. No one's doing the work for you, yet you're given the map. That's why the Bashar speaks on following the excitement. It's one of the ways to tune in to that network that allows for you to be in full resonance with those higher dimensional light codes and thought form projections of guidance, health, enjoyment, and unconditional love.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Up next, at the channel panel, you were asked to share 5 words. You said mountain, play, enjoyment, love, and divinity. Can you elaborate on your reasons for these 5 words, and in particular, mountain?
Sure. Mountain is a code, and mountain is a code for stillness. It is also the blending of physical and non-physical, because as you know, the mountain has a peak. The mountain, from that peak, then communes with the sky. And as you know, the mountain peak acts as a projective vertex of energy. So think of that peak as the beginning of an upward spiraling vortex, like a tornado of energy that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the further away it travels from that mountain peak. So the mountain peak is the reception point. It is the crown chakra of the mountain, and it sort of attracts the energetic mirror image of the mountain. You have the physical upward facing mountain and the metaphysical downward facing mountain, like two triangles touching vertex points. Two mountains with their peaks connected. This is you. This is you right now. Whenever you center your awareness upon an energy center or chakra, maybe it's the lower dantian, maybe it's the heart center, maybe it's the third eye, whenever you focus your mind and consciousness, you are assuming the peak of the mountain. And energy from below ascends up to that point. Energy from above descends down to that point. That is why mountain is first. It's like a hexagram. It's where the opposites are overlapping. The mountain is also unshakable. You can't really move the mountain unless you know how. And in order to move the mountain, you must be one with the mountain. So the mountain represents the unshakable foundation of empowerment, wisdom, and strength that you stand upon at all times, whether you know it or not. That's why mountain is first. From that state of stillness and empowerment, you become a receiver of those higher dimensional energies that are attracted to the peak of the mountain. The other four qualities come from that. If you don't have that stability, if you don't have that ability to focus and center your energy, it's going to be harder to enjoy. It is going to be harder to play. It is going to be harder to love. And it is going to be harder to recognize your divinity. These things are also a gradual sequence. Think of them as steps, step by step by step by step by step. Once one level is fully embodied, the next one begins to open up. So you can follow it like a journey if you desire to.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Up next, so there have been some videos released in our society of a being called Skinny Bob, which is supposed to be a gray. Is this a real video?
There are dimensions to it that are somewhat accurate and are somewhat inspired by genuine contact with grays. We will let you be the judge of its authenticity, but we're describing it as something that is partially accurate and inspired by genuine contact with gray beings, with the Maze.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, can you define the meaning of being masculine?
So it depends on who you ask. If you ask a human male that question, they're going to give you a certain answer. If you ask a female on your planet that question, they're going to give you a certain answer. If you ask an ET that question, they'll give you a certain answer. If you ask the source expression that you call God that question, it will give you a certain answer. And if you ask the source expression that you call goddess, it will give you a certain answer. So masculinity sort of varies depending on who's answering the question, because masculinity is different than what you describe as the biology of the male. Those two things are not the same. All beings possess a certain quality of masculinity, just as they possess a certain quality of femininity. And do keep in mind that there are forms of life and consciousness beyond the dualistic systems that blend those two polarities in all types of creative ways that you don't really have an example of here on Earth for the most part. So masculine energy is that which is externally oriented, where feminine energy is more internally oriented. And if you look at the reproductive organs of males and females, you'll see this. One's more externally oriented, one's more internally oriented. So that's a hint about the foundation. Remember, that's where the root chakra is. So you can understand foundational spiritual qualities through studying the root chakra, which is one of the reasons why sexuality was sort of contained by the major religions, because the lower centers can fully awaken and activate the upper ones. And that was deemed as something not relevant or appropriate for humanity during those more ancient times. But now the spiritual sexual technologies are being shared with all of you. How to bring the energy of the lower centers up to the crown in a healthy way, in a balanced way, in a conscious way. So you're receiving the spiritual technologies that allow for you to wield those biological powers with greater efficiency, grace, and care. Nevertheless, it is the masculine power that is more externally oriented. It is more similar to fire in that masculinity wishes to explore outwardly. It wishes to travel. It wishes to expand. It also wishes to blend with all things that it experiences without losing its sense of self. In other words, fire will want to burn things up whilst staying true to itself. It remains fire. So masculine power is like this. It wishes to expand. It wishes to explore. It wishes to become one with all things without losing its authentic uniqueness that makes it what it is. This is an archetypal portrayal. And as you can see, all beings possess that and express that to varying degrees. So what I'm describing here is not just for men. Women possess the same quality. Animals possess the same quality. Plants possess the same quality. Minerals possess the same quality. These are ways you could understand the masculine power.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So it's been said that at Skinwalker Ranch, beneath the mesa, there is an ancient gray spaceship. Can you speak on this? Is this a crashed UFO or was it placed there deliberately?
It was placed there deliberately. It was a craft that was utilized by more ancient versions of the Grey Federation. Remember that the Greys have been accessing the human timeline for some time. When they tunneled in to your Earth's timeline experience, they were not in any way limited to your point of view of the present moment. Through tunneling into your timeline, they have access to the previous points on the timeline that they are capable of resonating with. So the Greys were able to resonate with many past versions of humanity, which ultimately allowed for them to achieve contact with many of the ancient groups, with many of the ancient tribes, with many of the ancient peoples of your planet. This is why there are depictions of contact between the Greys and humanity being discovered within the Central and Southern Americas. There are even depictions of gray beings handing humans corn and chocolate. These are very old depictions. So the Greys and many other hybrids, through tunneling into this parallel reality time stream that you call your timeline, have been able to access many points throughout the timeline. The Greys, representing an alternate humanity, very similar to all of you, are easily able to access the past points of the timeline because those past points have more in common with the Greys than the future points. The future points of your timeline are more so navigated by the hybrid beings who represent the future blendings of human and Grey. So Greys can easily access the past of humanity. Hybrids can easily access the future of humanity. So this craft was a gift, and it was a craft that was occupied by benevolent Greys whom sought to uplift humanity, whom sought to create a healthy relationship between humanity and the Greys. So one of the ways that they did this was transmitting future knowledge to those ancient indigenous peoples whom were previously oriented around the location that you call Skinwalker Ranch. Eventually, those Greys reached the end of their lifetime. Their craft remained. So the craft was utilized by those indigenous peoples as a type of icon. The craft had the ability to assist them in communing multi-dimensionally with the craft's pilot, even though physically they were no more. And they were taught how to utilize the craft, not just for travel, but also for energetic purposes. So the craft was positioned upon a powerful earth chakra. The craft was utilized to assist the indigenous peoples in communing with their gray allies, the positive branches and dimensions of the Gray Federation. Over time, the methods were forgotten. Over time, the upkeep of the energy infrastructure decreased, and the technology became slightly chaotic and started to create strange multidimensional phenomenon around the location. And those descendants did not know how to handle that energy, and they began to move away from the location. Over time, the earth builds on top of itself. The craft is now underground.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, can you define vibration? Is it a state of mind or higher consciousness?
It's a part of both of those things, but it's not limited to any of those things because remember, everything vibrates. And what does that mean? Everything has a slight oscillation. It can vibrate very slowly. It can vibrate very quickly, but vibration is oscillation. Think of a sine wave. Frequency is the rate of the oscillations, the movement from lower to higher, from higher to lower. So that is vibration. All things vibrate. All things are built upon the scaffolding of mind, and all scaffoldings of mind are built upon the scaffoldings of consciousness. So mind creates a point of focus within the infinity of consciousness. It takes the waveforms and it condenses them into particle forms of experience. Those particle forms of experience, some of which can seem very solid, are made up of a symphony of vibrations, oscillations of various qualities that create the simulation of whatever the experience is that's being had. So, pure presence represents an eternal vibration where the oscillations from higher to lower and lower to higher are in perfect balance, perfect synchrony, forwards and backwards in every direction, in every dimension all at once. Think of all the vibrations played forwards and backwards simultaneously within the context of existence. That would create total stillness. It would create the experience of an infinity, an eternity, and an undying presence. As presence blossoms into awareness, there are slight shifts in the focal point. There are slight shifts within the total perfect synchronization of those higher and lower vibratory fields. And that shift, some call it a distortion, engenders the experience of awareness. Awareness simultaneously engenders consciousness. And that is where many of those various universal overlay frequencies can be organized as the matrices of incarnation by consciousness. So even the luminous scaffoldings that represent the archetypes and the infrastructures of experience, even these things are made by vibrations of higher dimensional forms of light with a capital L. So it's vibrations all the way up, vibrations all the way down. The vibrations become increasingly more differentiated once you're at the level of consciousness.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's a question about the Anunnaki. So when
Sure.
they created us and turned off some of our genetic markers, they were then recalled back to their planet. Why
Some of
is it
them.
that those, okay, so why is it that those markers were not simply turned back on?
They're being turned on now by all of you, developing your spiritual connection, activating your DNA, discovering your true will, your spiritual identity, who you were and who you are before your birth and after your death. All of this turns on the genetic markers. Now, when a person is influenced by the lower dimensional energies, if you will, when their focus is down, upon that which is more physical, there's less of those markers turned on because those multidimensional markers are a part of the light body. They are a part of the higher mind. They are a part of the soul levels of experience. So if the focus is more physical, if it's more terrestrial, if it's more negative in terms of its emotional quality, a lot of those markers are sort of turned off. Not even really by an outside force doing it to you, but simply through the human directed focus. As that focus is brought to a higher level, and as those spiritual qualities, which are based on fundamental truth, are energized, the genetic markers begin to turn on because you're channeling into the system higher dimensional forms of light through the energy body, which then empowers the DNA to respond accordingly. So remember, when the Anunnaki withdrew, and some of them went back into space, some of them went down beneath your Earth, when they withdrew, most of you were dependent on their guidance. So you had to sort of figure things out once more. Not all groups of humanity were able to figure it out. Some were. And once they did, they were able to achieve contact with the Pleiadians, with the beings of Sirius, with the positive lords of light from Orion. Many groups were able to enter in and assist humanity. Once enough of those whom maintained the spiritual link awakened to their full potential. So some factions of humanity were able to awaken these things. They were able to expand the contact experience as well into more positive forms of communion. Other factions of humanity did not figure that stuff out, and their focus went into an even lower direction than when the Anunnaki were present, because for many of them, the Anunnaki were sort of the only example. So some negative Anunnaki left negative examples of behavior. Some factions of humans really resented the Anunnaki, and they doubled down on the negativity that they felt out of resentment, out of spite, out of pride. Those are all a negative focus. So the DNA did not awaken fully in those groups. So you have that power, you have that authority now to activate your DNA in whatever way you desire. And you're doing it, whether you realize it or not, through the epigenetics. Your quality of food influences the DNA. The quality of your emotions and thought influence your DNA. The quality of your energy body influences your DNA. You actually have total control in many opportunities throughout the day to fully awaken the DNA. If you're expecting it to fully awaken overnight, well, that's a limited focus, and that's actually going to slow down your genetic awakening. So see it as a dance, see it as a game. Let every level be spiritual. Let every level be significant, and understand that all levels of activation have something wonderful to teach you. Don't try to race up the mountain. Instead, savor the journey. You won't have this particular DNA forever. You get it for one lifetime. So savor your relationship with it. Within the DNA is a story. You don't rush right to the ending of it. You savor each chapter. If it's a good story, you will. And just a heads up, spoiler alert, it is the greatest story ever told within you. We thank you all for your questions. We thank you all for this wonderful co-creation that we have shared with one another. This here, this now, our unconditional love to you now and always.
Too.
Ha'atu. Okay. Heck yeah, everyone. We did it. And great questions, great answers. I barely remember what he said, but I loved the way it felt. It was a really exciting tidal wave of positive information and energy. So thank you for the cool questions. Thank you for the deep questions. I remember the sword and shield question. I feel that's very relevant. And I think that whatever angle you use to relate to those symbols, it's your right to do so. So use all symbols in a way that helps to empower you and those around you. And you're going to have a guaranteed positive effect, regardless of what the symbol is. So use that in combination with your belief system structure and your unique archetype, who you are as the character in your story. So whatever meanings you create, let it be contextually synergistic with the other narratives you're using. Otherwise, it might not fit in the reframing. So always factor in those details to your story, you amazing authors. My friends, I will see you next time. Starshine, thanks so much for doing this with me. I had a blast.
Thanks again, my friends. It was a blast indeed, and we'll see you guys next week.
We'll see you guys soon. If you want to see some more, we have our special Patreon transmission this Monday. I almost forgot to make that announcement. Let me bring this up for you guys because this is going to be a very exciting transmission. This is Netter navigation. Netter in Egyptian is their word for the spirit world. So I'm going to read this off to you. This is our description for the event. If you want tickets, thegalacticguide.com is where you can purchase them. And if you are in the higher tiers of Patreon, that's the Rainbow Bridge of the Human Heart and above, you have access to this transmission just through your subscription. The mysterious veil of awareness separates us from the unknown. While many turn away from the unknown, others seek to penetrate through the veil into the spiritual beyond, known in Egyptian as the Netter, a dimension that not only supplies magical power to physical reality, but is itself the essence of magical power. Learn about your secret self, the lunar self, and how this shadow self can grant you and gain an in-depth view of the Netter dimension. So we are in, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, the fall season in December, right? It's going to be that shift into winter with the winter solstice. So this is when that lunar self, the shadow self, becomes more awakened. If you are part of the channel panel, RYOKAH talked a little bit about that and the benefit of the shadow self being a conscious dreaming self. So if you're excited to awaken the conscious dreaming self, to know the lunar self and to merge the solar and lunar self as one to be a complete you, then this Monday's transmission is going to be for you. And I invite you to join us. We're going to have a great time. And that's my major announcement for wrapping up November. We're almost there. And myself and Star have some fun stuff planned to wrap up the year with the Sasani Contact series. So do stay tuned. We saved the best for last. And we have one more Sasani Universe Contact Series event for this year. So join us and close out the year. We're going to make those announcements once we're into December. And stay tuned because we have some amazing 2026 projects in the works. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for sharing this space with me.